So welcome everyone to the JB Media Digital Drop-In. We're so glad to have you today. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that I joked on Facebook with some people is a subject I'm glad Justin wants to cover because for some reason the topic of bot, spam, and fraud traffic really in the short version makes me sweat. It's stressful. I think this goes along with a lot of the things I've been experiencing with hacking over the last few years with clients. So I'm excited to have him share with you some insights today about specifically how this affects your advertising campaigns. But again, we'll have some space to answer other questions. The best way to add your questions today is to the Q&A. However, I'll also monitor the chat and make sure that I grab questions from there if I need to. Also, for those of you who've never been to a digital drop-in, we will send you a recording as well as a copy of the slide deck. And so you don't have to remember everything that you hear today. We will basically give you all the notes and things like that. So really just keep track of the things that get you most excited. And again, thanks to everyone who answered the poll because I see they are complete. So I'm just going to share the results just so everybody can see. Interesting, 60% of the people have had an experience with hacking, personally or professionally. 60% of folks said their website has also been attacked by spammers or bots before. And I think this is interesting. 65% of you think that the internet is getting safer and more dangerous simultaneously. About 35% of you feel like it's getting more dangerous. So I think privacy and security is a big part of the conversation in the world these days. So I'm going to hand it over to Justin. But Justin, thanks so much for being here. I know you got a busy schedule. I appreciate you sharing this topic today.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate the opportunity. This is a topic I've been kind of digging into a little bit the last couple of years. I'm intending to actually study it some more. I'm doing a presentation at a fairly large conference on this in about 2 months. So I'm going to take this presentation and build it out even further for that. But I'm excited to share what I have here. The main purpose of this project, I mean, this particular class is focused on advertising. So it's talking about the quality of the traffic you're paying for. We're not really going to get into hacking and like how people, take over people's social media accounts. We're not really going to get into various ways that bots can like influence your analytics or your overall website statistics, although there is some relationship between what I'm going to be talking about in that topic. But yeah, we're going to focus mostly on advertising, how to identify the problem, some ways to solve the problem, and some alternatives to using those paid services that are more likely to cause these particular kind of issues that I'm going to be talking about. So let me get my screen share going and the slideshow. Let's jump right in. So we have the maximum amount of time for Q&A and discussion. So what are we talking about here? We're going to talk about the sources and causes of low quality traffic, which includes bots, spam, and click fraud. We're going to talk a little bit about the ways to identify them. We're going to talk a little bit about one particular paid tool that we like to use. We particularly use on our clients. We also use it on some of the websites we own to block these traffic sources and protect the site and protect our advertising budgets, which is really even more what I'm talking about in this class. And I'm going to talk a little about tourism considerations. I know that not everyone on the call is in the tourism industry, but I want to just touch on that briefly. And then I want to talk briefly at the end about some alternative strategies that you can consider doing instead of spending your money, like investing your money elsewhere or other ways to get traffic that don't require you to spend money with platforms, traffic that isn't even human beings or is really low quality. So, I mean, this just kind of goes without saying, but I wanted to start here that everyone's advertising budget, if you have one, is very valuable. And even if only a small percent of that is being wasted, it's worth the effort to fix it, especially considering the time it takes to diagnose it. And the tools, one of the tools we're going to show is relatively inexpensive to fix it. So if you're spending more than a couple $100s a month, these tools can be worthwhile. So what are the sources? There's a number of different sources we're going to talk about right off the bat. One is spam. Spam includes accidental clicks. So there are certain types of ads that get accidentally clicked on more often. The most common you probably have seen are ads that are on top of mobile apps or in the mobile web experience, because the mobile experience, you have to touch the screen to scroll. It's also the same way you click. So as you're scrolling, I'm sure you've done this before, you've accidentally tapped an ad, you realize you're being taken to another site. Usually you'll hit the back button, and that often gets counted as a click. And the person who had the ad, they see a click and an impression, and the impression was real. You saw the ad, but you often didn't mean to click on it. So that's one. Other types of ads in every format are sometimes accidentally clicked on. That's one type of spam that's pretty common. Fraud. There is fraud happening across a number of different types of advertising. Sometimes the fraud is actually perpetrated by the advertising platform itself, meaning they are literally paying either for fake or real people, fake bots or real humans, to try to click on their ads to drive up the engagement metrics or the clicks and things like that on the ads in order to make the advertiser spend more money. Now, obviously, this is basically illegal in most places. So there are lots of ways that this is, people fight back against this when they think it's happening or when they can prove it's happening. But it does still happen on some websites, on some social platforms. So it's worth being aware of. Another thing, actually, I think I kind of got these two a little bit reversed. So go back to fraud for a second. Fraud sometimes happens when people pretend like they're your target audience and they pretend like they're in your target area you want to target, even though they're not actually your target audience. So a good example of this, let's say you are some sort of national US-based professional services company and you offer, let's say, house painting. So you want to reach people in the United States who are searching for house painting. And let's say someone in, let's say, Eastern Europe wants to pitch a company like yours some sort of marketing service. They want to find out who's spending money on advertising in the US in that category, and they want to send them a cold email or some sort of marketing material to try to get them to buy something. So what they do is they use what are called proxy servers, and they pretend like they are actually in the United States, and then they search a keyword that you're paying for, and your ad shows up because they're sort of spoofing or faking where they are. They click on your ad, they use some of your ad budget. I'll keep going. So and to finish the conversation about fraud, fraud is when people pretend like they're your target audience by faking their geolocation and searching your keywords or going to websites you're advertising on, clicking on your ads, and then they typically email you through your web form or through the emails they find on your site, and that often ends up in your spam folder or in your inbox as what feels like a cold sales pitch. You probably get those regardless of whether or not you're doing any advertising, but sometimes if you see an increase in those, or if you're getting a lot of traffic, but you're not getting the right, people doing the right things on your site, that could be one of the reasons, especially if you're in an industry that is often targeted by those types of spammers or fraudulent actors. Bots and click farms is more, it's more of a way that the social apps and the other platforms drive up the clicks and drive up the impressions using fake accounts. Sometimes fake accounts like bots aren't even the product of the website of the advertising on. They have other nefarious activities that they're doing, including clicking on everything they see, and they'll click on your ads. So they're not always associated with where you're spending the money, but they can be, and they also can be part of efforts to inflate people's social media following by having fake accounts or put out fake information, like influence campaigns where people are just trying to get out a lot of content using fake social accounts. Those fake social accounts have to look like people, so they have to go around clicking on things, and sometimes they click on your ads, especially if they're trying to pretend that they are someone that you're trying to target. So all these things happen in various degrees, depending on the type of ad you're running, the type of industry you're in, the type of targeting you're setting up. And that's how, in some ways, you can, influence what happens based on the settings and the type of ads you run, as we'll talk about later. but you need to be aware that these things happen. They're somewhat impossible to completely prevent, especially accidental clicks and things like that are going to happen. But we're trying to teach our students, you all, how to minimize or avoid these issues. So certain types of Facebook ads, especially the maximize click campaigns that are not tied to a conversion event, are more susceptible to these types of advertising, or these types of issues. LinkedIn ads, we've noticed, this is something I've seen consistently. LinkedIn advertising, especially in their advertising network, seems to deliver extremely low quality traffic. And that's concerning because it's a popular platform for certain industries and certain types of businesses to use for advertising. So here are the ways to identify that low quality traffic is impacting your site or impacting your advertising campaigns. So in Google Analytics, it's possible to tell you're receiving traffic, low quality traffic, a number of ways. Here are some approaches. First, you want to always use UTM codes, which are basically added tracking variables on the end of your campaign or landing page URL in your campaign, which allows you to easily segment out that specific traffic source or channel in your analytics so you can see, okay, this is only the traffic we paid for on this UTM code, which appears in Google Analytics as a campaign. And you can say, okay, let me look at that traffic alone, because a lot of times the traffic from these channels like Facebook, let's say Instagram, Google, if you don't isolate it from the ads, it will get mixed in with the organic traffic and be harder to isolate your low quality, how quality your advertising traffic is, because typically organic traffic is more likely to be real people and therefore more likely to have better metrics that we're going to talk about in a minute. So you want to isolate it. So the way to do that is UTM codes. I'm not going to go into the details about what UTM codes are, but there's millions of really accessible resources. If you search how to set up UTM codes, there's UTM code generators that help you generate them. Really, it's just a bunch of extra things. You can keep it simple or you can make it more complicated depending on what you want to track and how granular you want to be. But you can add these to your campaigns. An example would be like UTM source equals Facebook ad. So then inside of Google Analytics, you see, let me see all my Facebook ad traffic. Let me check how it's doing. You can also break it down into individual efforts. So you can have them separated by which ad it was, which campaign it was, which page it was sent to, things like that. Once you've isolated traffic, you want to check these metrics. Time on site. So let's say you had a campaign running and on average, your site has visitors stay on the site for 1.5 minutes. But this one campaign that you isolated, all the traffic is only on the site for an average of 2 seconds. So you had 100 visitors, 200 visitors, and they spent 2 seconds each. That means basically no one of those paid visitors actually spend any real time on your site. It's an average, but if the average is extremely low, it means almost everyone left really, really fast. I've seen some campaigns where the average was 1 second. That means it's pretty much all probably fake traffic or accidental clicks that people are immediately going back, like immediately leaving your site. As soon as they arrive there, they're going backwards, getting away from your site. And that means that those people didn't mean to click on your ad. They aren't actually looking for what you're advertising. You spent the money, but you're not getting what you want, which is people who are interested in what you're advertising onto your site. Pages viewed, this is similar to that, but a lot of times the outcome of any sort of campaign is that people will look at more than one page to take an action. This is not always the case. Sometimes the goal is to get someone to read the entirety of one page, but most of the time there's some next step, whether it's to download something, to sign up for something, even if it's free, or to look at a few pages before they leave. If no one is doing that and that is your goal, there's something wrong with the quality of your traffic, because if you're getting the right people and they're interested, they would be taking some of those next steps that you're designing your content and your campaign to induce or to encourage. If it's not happening, there's a problem. The last thing is geolocation. If you look at your geolocation data for the segment of traffic that's paid, and it's showing people who are not in the area that you're specifically targeting, one of two things is happening. Your campaign is either being influenced or being clicked on by fraud traffic, or you don't have the actual geo settings correct, both of which are generating low quality traffic. If you're seeing traffic from anywhere that's known to have bot farms, click farms, lots of people who sell low quality marketing services like Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and India, you get a lot of traffic from those places. It's probably because people are trying to find you to pitch you something. And if they're coming through your ad campaign, it means they're seeing your ads and clicking on them, and you pretty much don't want that. So you need to change some settings or the type of ads you're doing or something else, or block that traffic so you don't pay for it. All right, so now that you know how to use Google Analytics for checking several different key things, we're going to talk about what to do about it. You can obviously change your advertising approach. You can reallocate your budget, or you can add a protection layer, or all the above. But we're going to talk about a protection layer now. So at JB Media, we and a few of our clients use a particular pro tool that's specifically designed to help with this, and it's called ClickCease. It costs about $100 a month. I think it's $79. The price may have changed a little bit for one website. If you have multiple sites, you can get a multi-site account for only a little bit more. So yeah, it's not a whole lot of money. Obviously, you only want to spend that if you are spending at least 5 to 10 times that much per month, like $500 to $1,000 a month, and you're concerned, or you have pretty much proof from the analytics that your traffic quality is suffering. We found that ClickCease works extremely well on Google Ads and other types of pay-per-click advertising, like Microsoft pay-per-click advertising. It's a lot harder to set up and actually get working correctly in social media advertising. And it's only available in Meta, not LinkedIn, which is a place where we feel like it would be really helpful. But so far, it's not available for that platform. You can also put it on your website to block any type of bot and spam traffic coming onto the site. But that would also block a bunch of other things other than your ad traffic. And so we usually recommend starting with putting it and connecting it to the ad campaigns that you're running, especially if you're running pay-per-click, especially if you have larger pay-per-click budgets, Google Ads budgets that are showing some signs or clear data indicating there's an issue here with this. So, I've already said most of this, but it protects Facebook and Meta campaigns. It blocks low quality traffic from those campaigns. It's really good for B2B campaigns on Google Ads and Microsoft Ads. It's just especially effective at that. And it can be added, like I said, to your entire website to block all low quality traffic sources from you ever making it onto the site. That, I'm not sure if that necessarily will keep you from not paying for the click, but it can be helpful. Sarah, did you want to add as you come? I just turned the video on. So the few considerations for the tourism industry. I'll go through this quickly because I don't know what percentage of the audience is in that industry, but
Justin, really quick,
yes.
I just wanted to point out that Isaac in the chat mentioned that they tried ClickCease last year and it blocked about 2% of their Google fraudulent PPC traffic. Do you know what percentage you guys are getting when you're using that tool? Just curious.
So are you saying it only blocked 2% of the fraudulent traffic, or only 2% of the traffic was fraudulent? Those are two different things.
No, that it only blocked 2% of their fraudulent traffic on Google.
How much are you spending on Google Ads? If you don't mind me asking, if you don't want to share, that's okay.
He's saying they were at about 180 a day.
Okay, I'm surprised that it's that low. We've seen better results. We've seen it be really effective on Google Ads. Most of our efforts have shown. I'm not sure what I can say it blocks everything, but we've seen campaigns where just adding ClickCease drastically increased the conversions because it allowed the budget to be spent on the right people, the people who are actually humans that were actually searching from the area we wanted to target. So maybe that's effective at blocking a very specific type of traffic. But in our experience, it's been pretty effective. And it's been a little while since that project ended. It's been about a year. So it's possible that things have changed, that the spammers are getting more sophisticated and finding ways around it. That's, part of the industry is figuring out ways around tools once they get popular. But I haven't seen, in my experience, I've seen it to be relatively effective. Otherwise, we wouldn't be promoting it. But we're going to go back to this for a minute. We can jump back into questions in a few minutes. I'm getting relatively close to the end, so we'll have some time for Q&A. So in the tourism industry, a lot of times, especially in destination marketing, the goal is to get as many people as possible to the website. And then once they're there, you just hope that they find what they're looking for and click off and go to your members or your partners. And there's oftentimes not a whole lot of really good quality conversion data on the client on the website itself. Sometimes there's 1 or 2 conversions, newsletter signups, visitor guide downloads, occasionally more involved conversions like booking hotels. That's less often happening on the site itself. So what that typically leads to is KPIs or metrics that are very vanity based, very total traffic, total clicks, cost per click. They're actually wanting data that aligns with the kind of data that you often get with low quality traffic, meaning low quality traffic is often less expensive. Low quality traffic often is high impression, high click, but it's not real people. And if you don't know how to check it or look for that, you can think your campaigns are doing great. You can be on par with the benchmarks because there's so many people who have low quality traffic that the benchmarks are skewed by that. And if you think, oh, I'm paying way more because I'm blocking all this traffic, you might feel like this is not working when in fact you're doing it right. You're getting to the right people, or you're orienting more toward the kind of campaigns that have real results and focusing on results rather than just the vanity metrics of traffic. But it can be difficult in the industry because if you've been used to doing it some way for a while and that's the numbers you're used to getting, it can be hard to convince leadership, your board, other people to be okay with a drastic change in the numbers by implementing something like this. If you do notice that you're getting a high volume or the volume increases when a campaign launches of spam email, junk email, or cold call inquiries, phone calls, or we had a client in this industry that was getting a lot of calls on their line that was related to like asking questions about visiting that were just sales calls. And so when they started receiving a lot of sales calls, rapid launch ads, we knew, okay, the ads are driving these cold calls. The cold calls have nothing to do with what they want to promote. It's bogging down the time of the people whose job it is to answer actual human questions, or sometimes it's just part of their job. They have a lot of other things they're supposed to be doing. So that's, if it's too bad, you just turn off the ads and figure out another way to spend the money, or you try to implement tools like this to fix it. So at the very least, you can use time on site metrics and pages viewed metrics in tourism to sort of differentiate the traffic sources and isolate which ones are having the lowest or setting the lowest quality. And also typically tourism marketing is usually a pretty distinct geographic area that they're marketing to. And so the location data can also be really telling if it's way outside or not in line with what you're targeting. That can be another issue, another indicator that something is wrong with either fraud traffic or proxy server traffic, or that you're not saying your settings aren't correct. So if you suspect issues that are sapping your budgets, a lot of times in the tourism industry, the budgets are basically public type dollars or tax dollars. And it's important to be, in any case, it's regardless of the industry, it's important to be careful with your budgets and make sure they're being spent wisely. But yeah, I want to just point that out that ClickSeis can be helpful in those scenarios. And we are able, if these analytic steps and these tracking steps are daunting, or setting up ClickSeis itself feels like too much for your team, we can help. JB Media can help with that. So I think this is the last slide before the Q&A, some alternatives. So your advertising dollars are critical and a finite resource. Try these best practices to avoid bloat, focus on outcomes versus total traffic, focus on campaigns that convert, such as travel or product giveaways, lead gen forms that provide real quality leads. You can obviously tell if the lead forms you're getting on your B2B website are junk or real. You should be able to tell that, at least if you add a little bit of information, or you just understand if they're turning into actual customer leads or not. Work with humans. I mean, I think in a lot of industries, it can make sense to do move a little bit of your advertising budget to authentic influencer marketing, authentic partnership marketing, where you're choosing to work with people who built the audience you want to reach, and then you're giving your money to them to run some sort of campaign. You're paying from one organization to an individual rather than from one organization to this mega conglomerate organization, which is the social media and digital advertising, larger companies in that space. I personally think that's a more ethical move if you find authentic influencers. Influencers are kind of its own thing, and we could have a whole conversation about the difference between real influencers and fake influencers, and how sometimes influencers have fake followers as well. And they can be susceptible to some of the same issues. So you have to be careful there too. But when done right, it can be a good alternative. And then you can also invest your money somewhere else. And like, for example, it takes money to build good content, to build links, to build a well-oiled machine for content marketing and SEO. And if you're not investing in that, you're only investing in paid traffic, and it turns out that a lot of your paid traffic is low quality or not really the right people or even humans, then you might want to spend more of your money on organic content and SEO, because those traffic sources are less susceptible to this. So it's just something to look into. All right, so that's it for my presentation. We still have, so looks like from Deb, she says, about one time each month, I'm seeing unusual traffic, about 1,500 to 1,700 hits on the website, all in a short window, coming from Ireland. Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit different, I think, than what I'm talking about specifically here. ClickCease might be able to help you block that traffic on your site from hitting your site, therefore from influencing your analytics. That is, I imagine it's not coming from a paid campaign. I imagine that's some sort of other type of click fraud or click spam. So I'm not sure if I have other than potentially using ClickCease or blocking particular places or IP addresses or IP ranges, things like that. That's a little bit above my current expertise of like those more specific options for blocking that kind of traffic. Sarah, I don't know if you have any more recent experience. I know I've heard us talking about this topic over the last few years from time to time. But before I jump to the next question, I want to see if Sarah has anything to add.
Yeah, I will say I'll invite Deb to maybe send me an email and just talk a little bit more about that, because I'm with you. You've taken the step, Deb, of blocking Ireland, but it's still continuing to come up. And I have some other folks that are talking to me about GA4 tracking, and there's definitely some things going on there. So feel free to send me an email. I'll drop my email in the chat.
All right. Next, I have something from Karen. She says, on Facebook Messenger, I notice I get the same message from a person with whom I have not communicated. When I answer their message, then I learn I get hacked. I don't know if it's possible to get hacked just by responding to someone's message. If they're asking you to go click on something and log in, that's often how people get hacked. Often there's a huge trend that's just been growing over the last year or two of a certain type of hacking happening in social media, especially on Facebook, where accounts that are supposed to try to look official, try to tell you that your page isn't violated some sort of policy or copyright infringement or some other policy depending. I mean, I've seen some that are very sophisticated, specific to the industry that the client is in, like healthcare or HIPAA or other things like that. And then they want you to go click on something and log in to see the complaint or see. And what they do is they make a page that looks just like the Facebook login, and you go to that page, you try to log in, and it steals your login information, and then they immediately log in and change, and they can change your password. So you can't really get hacked unless you give someone access, admin permissions to one of your pages who shouldn't have it, or you're you lose your password, or you use a password that is the same that you use on a bunch of other sites, and one of those sites gets hacked, and then they just try that on Facebook and get in. There's lots of different ways, but it's not just by responding to a message. So I wanted to clarify that, but there are tons of messages out there right now, messaging strategies that are designed to get you to reveal your information. So Sarah, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I'll just add that I think whenever you get a messenger request from somebody that you don't know, I'm really now having a policy, like we don't add those people in, like if we don't recognize them as someone who's been engaging with our page, or we don't recognize them as somebody that is all, like really part of our network, we're very cautious about what we accept. Because again, I know Karen is one of our students, and she's actually been through a number of hacking situations. And so, yeah, it's like really, I'm being very, very skeptical about anything that I just don't recognize as somebody who regularly engages with us.
Sumaya, I don't think so. The question is, do you know if ClickCease can help to reduce direct messages, spam direct messages, which is kind of what I was just talking about. Spam DMs, spam messenger messages in social media. They come in a lot of different flavors. Some of them are sales pitches. Some of them are hacking attempts. Some of them are, well, those are the top two, but there's other categories. And I know they can be really annoying for people, especially people like Sumaya, even myself, who are admins on dozens or more pages. Like I'm on 30 or 50 different Facebook pages, and I get a notification on my phone every time I get a message, and I get several a day that are hacking attempts on client accounts. I know that we have staff, we're actually managing those. I don't have to even, they already know that it's spam, it's fraud. They're just going to delete it, but it still like distracts me. And I'm sure it's annoying to them. I'm sure it's annoying to you, being that you're doing the same kind of work for us and other clients. So yeah, I don't think there's a way to block it. I think if there was an easy way to block it, it would be out there. But I'm not seeing anything. Sarah, did you have something to add?
No, I'll say that's another thing that I think we're all running into, and relates kind of what Karen said, whether it's a personal account or a business account, there seems to be a lot of hacking attempts. I also haven't found any tools that automatically remove those messages. So it's like, I'm being very thoughtful. There's certain styles of messages that, like you said, Justin, are easy to kind of recognize. And so that's really where I think some of us are just getting used to being able to catch it and delete it as soon as possible. And also having that rule of really, there's a lot of these phishing messages that are coming out where they tell you that your account is getting shut down, and they want you to click on something. Just so everybody knows, I wouldn't click on any of that. I would delete those messages immediately, especially because if you look at the links they give you, they are not necessarily Facebook related links. So I would avoid those at all costs.
Yeah, this kind of goes without saying, but if you're not doing this every day, it's not your main job to be a social media manager, or even if it is and you're a little bit new to it or still confused, the thing you can do is very carefully inspect the link that they're trying to get you to click on. If it doesn't say www.facebook.com at the beginning, it's not a Facebook link. It can say like me.com/Facebook, or they can have some really fancy looking URLs, even some misspellings or alternative spellings. or like Facebook.securitysite.com, they bought some domain that they want to make it look official. They've thrown a Facebook subdomain on it, and they're trying to get you to think it's official from Facebook. And that's the key, is they try to look official. I had a client a few weeks ago repeatedly tell me that they thought it was a legitimate message. And I kept saying, no, look at the URL, look at the URL. It's not. And it took her and she's a smart woman. She's really sophisticated operations manager for a very complicated business. And she was convinced that they had violated something, some policy, and that their page was going to get shut down if they didn't click the link and go make a claim or whatever. And I had to message, text, and email while on my day off like 7-8 times to get her to realize, get her and the owner, her boss, to realize it was not legitimate. We still have about 8 minutes left if we have more questions.
So Isaac was just saying that he's seen pay-per-click hijacking in the past in the solar industry, and thankfully it seems to have slowed down or ceased. Now they're seeing about 1,000 or so newsletter form submissions from Russian language bank scams. Do you have any recommendations for how to mitigate such a basic form like filling campaign that's obviously happening? But just curious if you have any suggestions for people having form filling issues.
Well, assume that the form filling issues are on your website, Isaac. Put your answer in the chat if you can. Is it on your website? Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think it's possible that adding ClickSees to your site itself, the option for blocking the spam traffic to your site might help. If it's 1,000 a day, that's going to push the limits of like what the basic account will allow. If it's 1,000 a month, it should be no problem. That's a lot of bad traffic. But I don't know much about how you can tweak the settings as far as blocking like particular regions or places. But I think that would help. Adding clicks if you don't have it already on the site. Other than that, I mean, there are more sophisticated server side things you can do to block traffic from certain places. And if you're a US based B2C company, you shouldn't need to get any traffic from other countries, or for the most part. So yeah, I would look at that. As far as hijacking, are you saying that you think competitors were clicking on your links to run your budget out? Is that what you meant by hijacking?
I mean, I think he was saying that the pay-per-click hijacking has actually slowed down, but now instead what they're seeing is 1,000 or so newsletter form submissions that are like some Russian bank scam.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think like
wondering...
actually he's separating out that they got the hijacking thing fixed. They're still having this issue with newsletters.
I was just trying to clarify what the word hijacking meant in this context, because it's if it meant like competitors running, like clicking on your ads on purpose, or that's what you thought was happening. It's hard to prove that, but not impossible. And there's been a lot of cases in years ago.
Yeah, he was saying in the chat in this context, it was PPC ad clicking to generate revenue for certain sites.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I personally don't love using third-party websites for PPC. I like to keep PPC clean, tight, down to just Google search. It makes a lot of these things easier to deal with. Display network is not, I understand it's helpful for remarketing sometimes and brand awareness and stuff, but in my experience, it's not a super high ROI. You get better ROI from just search engine only pay-per-click, meaning only people currently searching for stuff. So I almost never recommend using. I think there are other more effective ways to build brand awareness, like video ads on YouTube, video ads on social, that are more effective than display ads on the Google network. So that, I'm not surprised you ran into that issue with that. Those are much more prone to accidental clicks, especially on mobile. So I would just steer clear of display network. And that's the
So-
same issue that we see with the LinkedIn ad network as well.
So we've just got a couple minutes, but I really want to get to these last few questions very quickly, Justin.
Okay.
Jenny's question was, with Facebook, we found that anytime they do a giveaway for tickets to a local event, they start getting spammed. Someone or a bot makes a fake account and starts commenting on every entry. They've been reporting them, but it's frustrating. And like, again, we only have probably a minute for this, but just curious if you guys are seeing that at the agency and if you're doing anything to sort of mitigate that type of thing. I feel like that's a little bit like inbox messaging. It's hard to control that when it's actually something that's like commenting based.
Yeah, it's actually more concerning than inbox messaging because it actually impacts the people who entered the giveaway. We see it a lot with Romantic Asheville. We own Romantic Asheville. We do 5 to 7, 8 pretty large giveaways per year. Sumaya's on this call. She's been managing those recently. I mean, they've been managing those recently, and that is a definite issue with giveaways, especially in B2C broader categories. I talked to someone at our DIY conference where they do a big giveaway at the same time every year, and they get people starting to spam their giveaway before it even starts. So I would say it's going to be an issue. There's not really a really good way to stop it that I've seen. We usually have like we've sort of started doing, when it gets really bad, a little task force of team members who can go and all report the page quickly. That helps. Like, if a few people can report a page that's doing this quickly, it can shut it down faster. And what I'm talking about is a page that looks like the page doing the campaign or the giveaway. Usually what they're trying to do is get someone to give you their credit card information as part of to claim the prize. It's we actually had someone, I think, fall for it or almost fall for it with our last Romantic Asheville. Yeah, it's pretty intense. We're doing giveaways that get like 30, 40,000 entries. So there's a lot of it means it's reaching like 10 times that many people on social media. So there's lots of people who are in the mix. Yeah, we do disclaimers as well. We like make it really clear. But I want to get to the last question here. So Mark, question is, what steps do you propose engaging advocacy on advertising phishing with the government? I'm not sure. I don't really have necessarily an answer for that question. I don't have a silver bullet or even a good idea of what to do. The problem is that it's hard to regulate because people change their tactics. Like there's these fraudsters and spammers, and there's a whole bunch of different categories. You can't even lump them all into one category of what's going on. And they're one step ahead of anything that would be like a regulation or a law. And also a lot of times they're not even in the United States. So it's often difficult to even prosecute them, even if they are breaking US laws. So Sarah, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say, first, even though I know it's very frustrating for a lot of us to report, I do think that report button becomes our best friend, and we have to just use it as much as possible whenever things like this are happening. And that spans to everything related to privacy and security. I know each week I'm probably reporting a handful of things every single week that I think are not safe. So that's an unfortunate situation that we have to keep doing that, but I definitely encourage everybody to do that whenever you have the time. I also think that when you look at what we're doing with the government and how we're doing advocacy in the tech world, you'll notice that there's kind of a bunch of different factions of things that are going on. But in the privacy and security space, there are specific sort of rules and laws that come up. And I think it's really just about kind of being aware of those things. It's unfortunately, Mark, there's no easy answer, although I deeply appreciate you asking this question, because I think the more that we look at how we regulate the industry in different ways, the better we're going to be able to manage some of these things. And a lot of times, this stuff is falling through the cracks, and spammers and fraud people are able to get in here over and over because there's just these like different windows of things where it's kind of still the Wild West. So I think, in a lot of ways, if you just pay attention to like, the basic tech industry stuff, and keep an eye out for like what's being talked about. There may be things that you can write to your senators or House of Representatives people about to say, we support this particular type of law. But again, right now, I will just say, I don't see any of those things becoming prominent in 2024 because we're in an election year. So right now we're going to be dealing with all these other things. And in the tech industry, we see obviously other things taking the stage, like AI regulations, or the fact that a lot of social media companies are getting sued right now for persuasive technology and its negative impacts. So I think what we're going to see is like the spam and fraud conversation is getting buried underneath a bunch of other issues. But I know I keep up with just a lot of things with the Center for Humane Technology, just kind of understanding what's being talked about in the privacy and security space. If you email me, and again, I've dropped my email in the chat a few times, there's some other great organizations I can share with you that are just sort of keeping a tab on the pulse of what's going on in the tech industry and how we keep people more protected, and companies as well. So if you're interested in being able to tap into that, let me know. But I know we're right at the top of the hour, so we all have to get back to work. I want to just give another shout out to Justin. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your expertise on this issue. I know there's so many other issues related to this we could talk about. So I appreciate everyone focusing in on ad campaigns today, but always consider me a resource. And like I said, I want to invite you all to have a deeper conversation next month on February 7th, the first Wednesday, about what is going on with meta advertising in general, and just some of the issues that we're seeing there. I will be transparent in saying I don't know if we'll be able to solve every problem in that webinar, but we're at least going to talk about what we're experiencing, what I'm seeing clients experience, and what we can do to all just be safer and to be accomplishing our goals online without so many obstacles. So thanks for joining us today. Happy 2024. And I look forward to seeing you all at our next digital drop-in.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Isaac. Thanks, Mark. Great to have you all here. And Ginny, thanks so much. And just the folks who were sharing their experiences, really, really appreciate it. It's always important for us to learn from each other. So have a great rest of your week. And like I said, I hope to see you all on February 7th at the next digital drop-in.